The Artemis Dawn drifted in the silent void, the aftermath of battle still echoing in its metal halls. The crew had repaired much of the damage, but tension hung heavier than the smoke from burned circuits. Ethan Cole sat alone in the observation bay, staring at the distant stars, thinking about everything that had happened. The raids, the bond he shared with Lyra, the whispered warnings from Captain Rourke. The stars suddenly flickered with unfamiliar patterns, tiny streaks of light that moved faster than anything Ethan had ever seen. Ethan. They are here. Lyra's voice flowed into his mind, calm but serious. Her eyes glowed brightly in the dim room. He turned. The Zevran? Yes. My people. They have come to bring me home. Ethan swallowed hard. How did they find us? I cannot hide completely. They felt my absence. Her voice softened. And they will not leave until I return. The fleet arrives moments later, the observation window lit up with hundreds of glowing ships, perfectly aligned in formation. The Zevran fleet, sleek and radiant, filled the void with an intimidating presence. Their light was not just from engines, it seemed to pulse with thought, like a collective mind stretching across space. Captain Rourke's voice came through the comms, tense. All crew, brace yourselves. We've never seen anything like this. Ethan felt Lyra's hand brush his as she joined him by the window. They believe I am compromised, she said softly. They fear humanity will alter me, that I will bring chaos to our order. Ethan nodded, his chest tight. Then they've never met humans. Her eyes glimmered with curiosity and trust. Then show me, Ethan. Show them what your kind can do. The challenge of voice boomed across the ship, not through speakers but inside every mind aboard the Artemis Dawn. It was the Zevran High Commander. Lyra, return to your fleet immediately. Your attachment to this human is dangerous. You will bring disorder to our collective. Obey or face isolation. The crew murmured nervously. Ethan felt their fear but also a spark of courage igniting in him. He didn't move at first. Then he realized what he had to do. Lyra isn't a threat, he said aloud, standing tall. She's more human than you'll ever understand, and she's stronger because of it. A wave of thought rippled from the fleet, testing him, probing his mind. The Zevran could sense doubt, fear, hesitation. Ethan's heart pounded, but he held firm. They're testing you, Ethan, Lyra whispered in his mind. Hold your ground. Show them what humanity is. Humans as chaos and hope. Ethan closed his eyes and let his thoughts reach out, not to control, but to convey. He shared memories of courage, hope, and perseverance. He showed the fleet the moments of humanity that made them unpredictable, our laughter, our stubbornness, our mistakes, and our creativity. He let them see the small sparks that, alone, seemed fragile, but together, could burn like stars. You see, Lyra's not alone, he thought, focusing. Neither am I. Humanity is more than order. We survive because we adapt, because we imagine, because we care even when it doesn't make sense. Lyra's mind intertwined with his, and together, they amplified the message. The Zevran fleet recoiled as the strength of human thought and emotion flooded the space between them. Unlike the structured Zevran, humans could act unpredictably, feel deeply, and embrace chaos as power. This is why I belong with you, Ethan, Lyra whispered. You are the proof. Proving humanity. The High Commander's voice struck again, cold and precise. Explain this intrusion of emotion and chaos. How does it benefit you? How does it not destroy everything we built? Ethan took a deep breath. It's not destruction. It's creation. It's survival. You see humans as disorganized, weak, but we are strong because we feel, we imagine. We make mistakes, and then we fix them. That's our gift. A silence stretched across the void. Then small signals pulsed through the Zevran fleet, hesitant at first as they absorbed his words. And Lyra, Ethan said aloud, turning to her. She's not just part of your collective, she's her own person, and she chose to share that with me. The High Commander's voice softened, though it was still firm. Your kind is remarkable. Perhaps we underestimated you. Perhaps there is merit in what you show." Ethan nodded, letting the tension fall away slowly. He glanced at Lyra, whose eyes glowed brighter than ever, filled with trust and warmth. The choice. The Zevran fleet shifted in formation, creating a corridor of space around the Artemis Dawn. Their message was clear. Lyra could return, but she did not have to. Ethan stepped closer to her. "You don't have to go. You can stay. They've seen what we have together. They understand it now." Her eyes met his, shimmering with emotion. "I have never felt like this before. Your thoughts, your fears, your hope. I could return. To the fleet, yes, but it would be empty. I would lose the fire you brought into my life." Ethan's hand found hers, holding it tightly. "Then stay. Not because I say so, but because it's what you want. We'll face whatever comes together." She smiled softly, her presence washing over him like warmth. "Together," she agreed. "A new alliance." The Zevran fleet observed quietly. After hours that felt like days, they began to retreat slowly, recognizing the bond and understanding its significance. Humans were unpredictable, chaotic, and strong in ways the Zevran had never experienced. Captain Rourke exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders. "Well, I didn't think we'd see the day humans teach Zevran anything." Ethan smiled faintly. "We don't just survive, Captain. We adapt. And sometimes, we show others a new way of seeing the universe." Lyra squeezed his hand, whispering in his mind, "You have changed me, Ethan. You've shown me life I never imagined." Ethan laughed quietly. "And you've changed me too. I wouldn't trade it for anything." A future together days later, the Artemis Dawn continued its journey. The crew gradually accepted Lyra, though they still watched her cautiously. Ethan and Lyra's bond, however, was undeniable. In private moments, they shared thoughts, laughter, and even small disagreements, but the connection only grew stronger. Ethan realized something remarkable. Humans were not just survivors. They were teachers. Their ability to imagine, to feel deeply, and to act unpredictably made them powerful in ways no alien could fully predict. Lyra had been the first to see it, but now the Zevran fleet had glimpsed it too. And in the quiet of the observation bay, Ethan whispered to her, "No matter what comes next, we face it together. You and me, Lyra, against the stars, against the galaxy." Her response was soft, warm, and unwavering. "Together, Ethan. Always." And for the first time, Ethan felt truly certain of something. Sometimes even the thoughts you're most ashamed of, the fears you hide, and the chaos you carry inside, can become the reason someone values you most. Humanity had proven its gift. Not just survival, not just courage, but the uncontainable, unshakable strength of imagination, emotion, and heart. And in the vast emptiness of space, amidst stars and distant worlds, Ethan Cole and Lyra began a new journey. Not as engineer and alien, not as observer and telepath, but as equals, bound by trust, fire, and hope. The universe had changed, and so had they. The battle with the raiders had ended, but the silence that followed was heavier than the sound of gunfire. The Artemis Dawn limped through space, damaged but alive. The crew patched broken walls, sealed air leaks, and replaced scorched wiring. Outwardly, the ship was being repaired. Inwardly, the crew was cracking, and at the center of it all stood Ethan Cole and Lyra. The weight of suspicion. Ethan was in the maintenance bay again, tightening bolts on a patched coolant pipe. His hands worked automatically, but his mind wasn't on the job. Every time he passed crewmates in the corridors, he saw the same looks, some filled with gratitude, others with suspicion. One group had clapped him on the back after the battle. "Good work, Cole. Without you, we'd be stardust." But others muttered when they thought he couldn't hear. "The alien's got her claws in him. He's not thinking straight." The words stuck to him like grease that wouldn't wash off. The hatch hissed open. He didn't have to look up to know who it was. "You are troubled again," Ethan sighed. "You don't even need to ask, do you?" Lyra stepped closer, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "No. I feel it in you. Fear. Doubt. The voices of the others, pressing on you." He tightened the bolt harder than necessary. "They think I'm your puppet." She tilted her head. "Are you?" Ethan froze, the wrench in his hand. "What kind of question is that?" Her voice brushed gently against his thoughts. "Honest. Do you feel I control you?" Ethan let out a long breath. "No. But I don't know where you end and I begin anymore. That scares me." For once, she didn't answer. She just watched him, her expression unreadable. The captain's orders later that day. Captain Rourke gathered the crew in the main deck. His grizzled face was tight with anger. "We survived. The raiders," he said, "but we can't ignore the facts. They almost had us. And we only pulled through because of unusual methods." His eyes flicked toward Lyra and Ethan. A low murmur rippled through the crew. Rourke slammed his fist on the console. "Listen up. I don't care what tricks were used. What matters is survival. But I'll make this clear. We don't fully understand what she can do." He pointed at Lyra. "And that makes her a risk." Ethan stepped forward without thinking. "She's not a risk. She saved us." The captain's eyes narrowed. "She saved us? Or you did? Maybe you can't tell the difference anymore, Cole." Ethan clenched his fists. "You don't understand. She didn't force me into anything. I chose to help." Rourke shook his head. "Maybe. Or maybe she made you think you chose." The room grew tense. Some crew nodded in agreement with the captain. Others looked uncertain. Lyra stood silently, her face calm, but Ethan felt her sadness brushing faintly against his mind. The captain's voice dropped lower. "Until I'm sure she isn't a danger, she stays under watch. And Cole, don't forget you're human first. Remember that." Ethan's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue more, but the captain's glare silenced him. A quiet rebellion. That night, Ethan found Lyra in the observation bay. She stood alone, staring at the stars. "They don't trust me," she said softly, this time with her actual voice. It was the first time Ethan had heard her speak aloud in days. Her voice was low, almost musical. "And now? They do not trust you." Ethan sat beside her. "Yeah, well, I don't care what they think." But he did care. And she knew. Her glowing eyes turned toward him. "You should. You live among them. You need them." Ethan met her gaze. "And what about you? Do you need them?" Her voice slipped into his mind again, softer than before. "No, I only need you." The words hit him harder than any explosion. His chest tightened. "Lyra." She stepped closer, her silver skin reflecting the starlight. "When I hear your thoughts, I feel alive. My kind does not have this. They are order, calm, unity. But you are fire, chaos, hope. When you doubt yourself, I want to hold that doubt. When you laugh, I want to keep it forever. I crave what you are." Ethan swallowed, his heart pounding. He wasn't sure what to say. Part of him wanted to believe her completely. Another part whispered the captain's warning. Maybe she's controlling you. But when he looked into her glowing eyes, he didn't see control. He saw longing. "You really mean that?" he asked quietly. Her answer was simple. "Yes." The division. The days that followed grew colder. The crew was divided. Some avoided Ethan entirely, whispering when he passed. Others asked him to explain what it felt like, how the bond worked. Ethan never had a good answer. The tension snapped one evening in the cafeteria. Ethan was eating alone when two miners approached him. "Cole," one sneered, "we're sick of you and your alien shadow. She's dangerous and you're too blind to see it." Ethan set down his fork. "Back off." The second miner leaned closer. "Or what? You gonna let her crawl in our heads too?" Ethan stood slowly, His hand shook, but not from fear. Anger burned through him. She doesn't control anyone, and she sure as hell doesn't need your permission to be here. Before the miners could reply, a voice cut through the air, not in sound, but in thought. Enough. Lyra stepped into the room, her eyes glowing like fire. The two miners froze, backing away, suddenly pale. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't threaten. She simply was, her presence pressing against every mind in the room. Ethan felt it, too, a ripple of power, restrained but undeniable. The miners muttered curses and left quickly. Ethan turned to her. "You didn't have to do that." Her eyes softened. "I did. They would have hurt you." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're making things worse. Now they'll really think you're controlling everyone." "Then let them," she replied. "I will not let them harm you." Ethan didn't argue. Deep down, he was grateful. The confession later that night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. Finally, he whispered, "Lyra, you there?" Her voice came instantly. "Always." He hesitated. "Back in the observation bay. When you said you needed me. Did you mean it, or was that just—" Her presence in his mind grew warmer, closer. "I meant it. Ethan, I am not like my kind. They see humans as noise, as lesser. But to me, your noise is music. Without it, I feel hollow." Ethan's throat tightened. "But why me? There are 100 people on this ship." "Because you do not hide. Even when you try, your thoughts spill out. You are open, raw, alive. I see all of you, your shame, your fear, your strange humor, and I do not turn away. I love it all." The word struck again. Love. Ethan sat frozen, heart pounding. He whispered, "Lyra, I don't know what to say." "Say nothing. Only think. I hear it all." And in that moment, Ethan realized she was right. He didn't need to speak. She already knew the truth he was too afraid to admit. That somehow, against all reason, he didn't just accept her presence. He wanted it. The captain's last warning. The next morning, Captain Rourke called Ethan to his office again. His face was grim. "You're too close to her, Cole," he said. "I can see it in your eyes. She's not just in your head, she's in your heart now." Ethan said nothing. The captain leaned forward. "Listen to me. I don't care how useful. She was in that fight. If you let her dig any deeper, you won't be you anymore. You'll just be a reflection of her." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Maybe you're wrong. Maybe she's the first one who's ever really seen me for who I am." Rourke slammed his hand on the desk. "Damn it, Cole. That's exactly what I'm afraid of." Ethan turned and walked out, his chest burning. He didn't know if the captain was right or wrong. But he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to give Lyra up. The unbreakable bond that night, Ethan met Lyra again in the observation bay. The stars stretched endlessly before them. He took a deep breath. "Everyone thinks this is dangerous. Maybe it is, but I don't care anymore. Whatever this bond is between us, I don't want it to end." Her eyes glowed brighter, and her voice filled his mind, warm and certain. "Then it will never end. We are bound, Ethan, in thought, in fire, in everything." Ethan closed his eyes, letting her presence wash over him. For the first time, he stopped resisting. He let her in completely. And in that moment, he knew. No matter what the crew thought, no matter what the captain said, his life was no longer his own. It belonged to her, as much as hers belonged to him. Ethan didn't know what the future held, but he knew this. Their bond wasn't just friendship anymore. It was something deeper, stronger, and far more dangerous, and one day soon the rest of the galaxy would notice. The Artemis Dawn had sailed smoothly for weeks. The crew had settled into their usual rhythm, mining asteroids, refining ore, and shipping resources back to the colonies. But peace in deep space was always fragile. Ethan Cole was in the maintenance bay fixing a cracked coolant pipe when the alarm sirens howled. The red lights flashed across the walls. His wrench slipped from his hand. "What now?" he muttered. The captain's voice roared through the intercom. "All crew to stations. Unknown ships approaching. Brace for combat." Ethan's stomach dropped. Raiders. The first attack. The floor shook as the first blast rocked the ship. Tools clattered from shelves. Ethan stumbled, grabbing the wall. He sprinted down the corridor, heading for the control deck. Crew members rushed past him, shouting orders, strapping into stations. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the hull. When he burst into the deck, he froze. Lyra stood near the captain's chair, her glowing eyes burning brighter than ever. She wasn't speaking aloud, but Ethan could feel her presence thrumming inside his head, urgent and sharp. "Status," Captain Rourke barked. "Enemy ships closing fast," the pilot shouted. 3 raiders using cloaking fields. "We can't lock onto them. They vanish from sensors every few seconds." Another explosion shook the ship. Sparks rained from a console. Ethan's heart raced. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained for battle. But somehow he knew he couldn't just stand there. Then Lyra's voice struck inside his mind. "Ethan, come here." A risky connection, he hurried to her side, trying not to panic. "What do you need?" Her eyes locked onto his. For the first time, he saw fear flicker across her alien face. "I cannot track them alone. They're cloaking. Bends light and sound, but not thought. I feel faint sparks, but they slip away. Your mind may see where mine cannot." Ethan blinked. "Me? I'm no soldier. I don't even know what I'm looking for." "Not knowledge. Instinct." Her voice in his head was steady, urgent. "Humans leap between patterns. You imagine, you guess. That is your strength." Before he could argue, she grabbed his hand. A wave of warmth surged into his mind, pulling him deeper than ever before. Suddenly, he wasn't just hearing her voice. He was inside something bigger, a shared space of thoughts and feelings. He gasped. What is this?" "A bond," she said simply. "Trust me. Think with me." The hidden enemy, images flickered before his eyes. Not real images, but fragments, memories, guesses, shapes. Lyra was pulling everything from him. His sense of direction, his habit of scanning corners, even the way he imagined threats hiding in the dark. And through her, he felt something else. Faint echoes, ripples in the void, as if invisible hands brushed against the ship's hull. "The cloaked raiders, they're circling us," Ethan gasped. "One on the left, no, behind." The pilot spun the ship just as another blast ripped past where they'd been seconds ago. "Lucky guess, Cole," the captain shouted, but it wasn't. Luck. Ethan could feel the pattern now, the way the raiders moved like hunters circling their prey. He shouted directions and the crew responded. The ship jolted, dodging attacks. Lyra's voice wrapped around his mind. "Yes, you see it. Together, we see what they hide." "The counterattack target at bearing 219, Ethan shouted. Suddenly, he didn't know how he knew, but the certainty burned in his chest. "Fire!" the captain roared. The ship's cannons blazed. For a moment, empty space swallowed the blasts. Then, an explosion lit the void. One raider ship flickered into view, its cloak collapsing as it spun in flames. The crew cheered. "2 more, the pilot shouted. Another blast slammed into the Artemis Dawn. Consoles sparked, alarms wailed. The engineer on duty yelled, "Shields at 40%. Ethan swayed, gripping Lyra's hand tighter. His head pounded. The bond was overwhelming. Images, emotions, and strange alien sensations rushed through him. He wasn't sure how much longer he could take it, but Lyra's voice steadied him. "Hold on. With me, Ethan. Just a little more." Together they tracked the second raider. It darted through the dark, vanishing and reappearing. Ethan focused, letting his instincts guide him. He pictured where he would hide if he were the enemy. "There!" he shouted. The ship fired again. Another raider burst into flames. Only one remained. The breaking point. The last raider was smarter. It didn't circle recklessly. It darted close, then far, firing sharp bursts and disappearing again. Ethan's head throbbed. Sweat dripped down his neck. He could barely separate his own thoughts from Lyra's anymore. "Cole, talk to me," Captain Rourke barked. "Where's the last one?" Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came. His vision swirled. He felt like he was drowning in the bond. "Breathe," Lyra whispered in his mind. "Do not fight me. Flow with me." He forced himself to relax. Slowly, the confusion cleared. He saw the pattern. The raider was using the ship's blind spots, slipping into the angles sensors couldn't reach. "It's above us," Ethan shouted. The gunners fired upward. The raider dodged, cloak flickering. For a split second, its outline shimmered. "Again," Ethan yelled. The cannons fired once more. This time the blasts hit true. The last raider erupted in fire, debris, scattering into the void. The alarms fell silent. The battle was over. After the fight, the crew erupted in cheers, slapping each other on the back. Some looked at Ethan with wide eyes, half in shock, half in respect. But Ethan barely heard them. His knees buckled. The bond snapped as Lyra released his hand and he collapsed into a chair, gasping for breath. "You okay, Cole?" one of the pilots asked. He nodded weakly. "Yeah, just tired." Lyra knelt beside him, her eyes glowing softly. For once she didn't speak in his mind. She looked almost human in her concern. The captain approached, arms crossed. "Cole, I don't know how you did it, but you saved us. You and her both." He gave Lyra a wary glance. "But don't think this is over. I need answers." Ethan swallowed, too exhausted to argue. A quiet moment. Hours later, the ship was repaired enough to continue its journey. The crew settled back into routine, though tension lingered. Ethan sat alone in the observation bay, staring at the stars. Lyra entered silently, standing beside him. For a while, they didn't speak. Finally, Ethan said softly, "That was insane. I thought my head was going to explode." Her voice brushed his mind gently. "You were strong. Stronger than you know." He shook his head. "I'm not strong. I was terrified." "That is strength," she replied. "To fear, but act anyway." Ethan looked at her. "Why me, Lyra? Why not anyone else on the crew? Why do you keep pulling me into this?" Her glowing eyes met his. "Because only you let me in. Others close their minds. You open yours, even when you do not mean to. That is why we can fight together." Ethan stared back at the stars. "I don't know if that's a gift or a curse." Lyra's presence in his mind warmed. "A gift. And soon you will see how important it is." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" But she didn't answer. She only stood beside him, silent, her glowing eyes reflecting the endless void. The uneasy crew. The next day, Ethan noticed the way the crew looked at him had changed. Some nodded in respect. Others whispered nervously when he passed. "They couldn't have done it without him," one miner said. "Yeah, but what did she do to him? Did you see his face after?" "He looked half dead. Telepaths. Can't trust him. Now she's got him on a leash." Ethan clenched his fists. He wanted to argue, but deep down, he wondered if they were right. The bond had been powerful too, powerful. If Lyra had wanted, could she have controlled him completely? That thought haunted him. The choice that night, Lyra found him again, this time in the quiet engine room. "You are troubled," her voice whispered. "Of course I am." Ethan snapped. "Half the crew thinks you're dangerous, and maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just letting you mess with my head." Her expression softened. "If you wish, I can leave your mind. I will never enter again." Ethan froze. He hadn't expected that her voice grew quieter. "But then you will lose what we found, and so will I." He looked at her, this strange alien who could hear every thought he tried to hide, who had saved his life and nearly broken his mind all at once. Finally, he whispered, "Don't leave." Her glowing eyes brightened, and her voice in his head filled with warmth. "Then together, we will face what comes." Ethan didn't know what the future held. Raiders were only the beginning. The captain still didn't trust Lyra. and the crew's suspicion grew daily. But one thing was certain. His life was no longer his own. It was bound, in ways he barely understood, to hers, and deep down, part of him was glad. The Artemis dawn drifted through empty space, engines humming steadily as the crew went about their duties. For most of them, it was another uneventful week in deep space mining. But for Ethan Cole, nothing felt ordinary anymore. Every moment carried a new weight, because Lyra was always there. Sometimes beside him in person, sometimes just in the quiet corners of his mind. At first, Ethan thought he would get used to it, but instead, it became stranger each day. Her presence. Everywhere Ethan, crouched in the maintenance bay, repairing a broken drone arm, sparks flew as he welded two joints together, muttering to himself, "Why can't these things stay fixed for more than a day?" A familiar voice brushed his thoughts. "Because you enjoy fixing them." He flinched, almost dropping the welder. "Lyra, could you please not pop into my head while I'm holding dangerous tools?" From the doorway, her soft laughter echoed, not in the air but inside his skull. She leaned against the wall, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. "You complain," she said gently, "but I can feel the truth. You find peace in repairing. The puzzle, the challenge, it soothes you." Ethan grumbled. "Yeah, maybe. Still doesn't mean I like drones breaking every shift." Her glowing eyes softened. "Humans hide their joys even from themselves. But you cannot hide from me." Ethan sighed, shaking his head. It wasn't just her words, it was the way she felt. Her presence wasn't like a voice. It was like warmth seeping into his thoughts, a constant reminder that he wasn't alone, even when he wanted to be. The cafeteria incident. One evening, Ethan sat at a crowded table in the cafeteria, trying to enjoy his bland stew. The crew talked, loudly around him, laughing and trading stories. He kept quiet, not much of a talker. But then his eyes wandered, first to the food, then to the clock on the wall, and finally, without meaning to one of the crewmates across the table, a young pilot who always smiled too much. Immediately, Lyra's voice entered his mind. "You compare yourself to him. You think others like him more. Why?" Ethan nearly choked on his stew. He glared across the room at Lyra, who sat calmly at another table, her eyes locked on his. She didn't even need to be close to reach him. He clenched his jaw, muttering under his breath, "Could you not share my insecurities with the entire galaxy?" "Only I hear," she teased gently. "And I do not laugh at you." "Yeah, well, I'm laughing at myself already," Ethan muttered. But she didn't let go. "You think yourself small, but your mind shines louder than anyone in this room. That is why I listen." Ethan wanted to crawl under the table. He was sure half the crew could see his red face. He shoved his tray away and stood up quickly, leaving the cafeteria before she could say more. The captain's warning. Later that week, Captain Rourke called Ethan into his office. The captain was a big man, grizzled from years of space work with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He folded his arms as Ethan entered. "Cole," the captain began, "you've been spending a lot of time with our Zevran guest." Ethan shifted, uncomfortably. "She kind of spends time with me. Not really my choice." Rourke's gaze hardened. "I don't like it. Zevran telepaths are dangerous if you're not careful. They can twist a man's thoughts without him realizing." Ethan shook his head quickly. "No, Lyra isn't like that. She just listens. Teases me sometimes, but she's not controlling anything." The captain leaned forward. "Maybe not. Or maybe you just think she isn't. That's the problem. How do you tell the difference?" Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. The truth was he couldn't tell. But deep down he didn't believe she would harm him. "I trust her," Ethan said finally, though his voice wasn't as steady as he hoped. Rourke frowned, studying him for a long moment. Then he sighed. "Just to be careful, Cole. You're a good worker. I'd hate to lose you to some alien experiment." Ethan left the office feeling uneasy. He wanted to believe Lyra was harmless. But the captain's words gnawed at him. Private. Confessions. That night, lying in his bunk, Ethan tried to think quietly. He tried to keep his mind blank, but that was impossible. The more he tried, the more thoughts spilled out. Memories, regrets, even silly songs. And of course she was there. Yukio. Try to hide. But your silence is louder than your words, Lyra whispered in his mind. Ethan groaned. Do you ever sleep? Not like you. My mind rests, but I remain aware. It is different. He rolled onto his side, staring at the wall. Do you ever, I don't know, wish you could stop listening? There was a pause. Then her voice came softer than ever. No, not with you. That answer made his chest tighten. He swallowed. Why me? Out of all the people here? Because your thoughts are not cold. They burn. Even your shame, your doubts. They glow brighter than the emptiness of my own kind. I do not only hear you, I feel alive because of you. Ethan's heart pounded. He didn't know how to respond. Nobody had ever said something like that to him. Finally, he whispered, You're going to make my life really complicated, you know that? Her laughter, light and warm, filled his head. Good. Complication is better than silence. The crew's suspicion word spread quickly on a ship as small as the Artemis Dawn. By the next week, everyone had noticed how close Ethan and Lyra had become. Whispers followed him in the corridors. Cole's got the alien in his pocket. Or maybe it's the other way around. Can't trust telepaths. They'll dig out your secrets and use them against you. Ethan tried to ignore it, but it was hard. Even his closest co-workers started acting distant. He caught them watching him, as if waiting for him to slip up. One day, in the storage bay, 2 miners confronted him. Hey, Cole, one of them sneered. You enjoying being the alien's pet project? Ethan stiffened. She's not. Don't lie. We've all seen how she stares at you, like she owns you. Ethan clenched his fists but forced himself to stay calm. She doesn't own anyone, she's just curious. The other miner spat on the floor. Curious, huh? That's how it starts. Next thing you know, you're not even human anymore. Ethan walked away before things got worse, but their words stung. Was he really letting himself become some kind of experiment? Shared secrets. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. His thoughts swirled. Fear, anger, confusion. Lyra's voice came softly, almost hesitant this time. They do not understand. But you doubt too. I feel it. He sighed. Yeah, maybe I do. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just entertainment for you. Her presence in his mind grew, stronger as if she leaned closer. Not entertainment, connection. My kind does not feel what I feel with you. When you are angry, I feel fire. When you laugh, I feel light. When you doubt, even that is beautiful, because it is real. Ethan rubbed his face. You're making me sound better than I am. You are not better. You are human. That is what I love to hear. The word hung in his mind. Love. Did she mean it the same way humans did? Or was it just the closest word she could find? Ethan didn't ask. He wasn't sure he wanted the answer yet. A growing bond in the days that followed, their connection deepened. Sometimes, without meaning to, Ethan felt her emotions brushing against his own. Calm curiosity, quiet joy, even flashes of sadness. She didn't just read him anymore. She let him glimpse pieces of her, and slowly Ethan realized something: he didn't feel so alone anymore. For years, life on the Artemis Dawn had been routine, dull, isolating. But with Lyra in his head, every moment felt alive, unpredictable. He still blushed when she teased him about his private thoughts. He still got frustrated when she interrupted his work with strange questions. But deep down, he couldn't deny it anymore. He liked having her there. Even if it meant the rest of the crew whispered behind his back. Even if it meant his life would never be simple again. Because when Lyra laughed in his head, when she whispered his name with warmth, when she called his messy human mind beautiful, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt seen, and for the first time, He wondered if maybe, just maybe, his life was about to change in ways he couldn't imagine. Ethan Cole never thought of himself as important. He was just a maintenance engineer on the mining ship Artemis Dawn. His job was simple: fix pipes, check pressure valves, repair drilling drones when they broke down. Life in deep space was boring. Most of the time, and Ethan had accepted it. The ship floated far away from Earth in the unclaimed sector where companies fought over asteroid rights. To him, every day was the same, until she arrived. The new crew member stepped onto the ship's deck with quiet grace. She was tall, slender, with pale silver skin that shimmered faintly under the lights. Her eyes glowed softly, like embers trapped in glass. The crew whispered her name as the captain introduced her. "Crew, meet Lyra. She is a representative of the Zevran Collective. She'll be assisting with communications and navigation." Ethan stood in the back, half listening, wiping grease from his hands. He had heard of the Zevran before. Telepaths, strange and distant. Most humans found them unsettling. They spoke less with words and more with thoughts. But Lyra didn't look frightening. She looked curious, scanning the crew with those ember-like eyes until they paused on Ethan. For a moment he felt a strange warmth in his head, like someone brushing lightly against his thoughts. He shook it off, muttering to himself. That night, Ethan sat in the ship's small cafeteria, eating reheated noodles. The food was bland, but it was filling. He was halfway through when he heard a voice, not in his ears, but inside his head. "Your food smells strange." Ethan nearly dropped his fork. He looked up and saw Lyra sitting across the table, her glowing eyes fixed on him. Excuse me?" Ethan stammered. "The flavor. Artificial. But you enjoy it." The voice continued even though Lyra's lips never moved. Ethan's heart raced. "You're inside my head?" She tilted her head, almost amused. "Yes, it is how we speak most clearly. Words are limited, but your thoughts are loud." "My thoughts?" Ethan's face turned red. "Wait, you can hear everything I think?" Lyra's eyes glimmered with what almost looked like mischief. "Not everything. Only what slips to the surface. But your mind is noisy, chaotic. Unlike Zevran minds." Ethan groaned and buried his face in his hands. "Great. So you've been eavesdropping on me all day?" Her laughter echoed softly in his head. "Eavesdropping? No. You project freely, like a beacon. Most humans are difficult to read, but your mind is wide open." Ethan frowned. "That's not comforting." But Lyra only leaned closer, studying him with glowing eyes. "I find it refreshing." Over the next few days, Ethan couldn't escape her. Whenever he worked on repairs, he would feel her presence, brushing against his thoughts. She didn't always speak, but he knew she was there, watching silently. Sometimes she surprised him by commenting on things he hadn't said out loud. When he muttered curses while fixing a stubborn valve, her voice entered his head. "Your frustration is loud, but your determination is louder." When he thought about how boring the cafeteria food was, she teased, "You complain, yet you still eat with satisfaction. Strange human contradiction." When he caught himself daydreaming about Earth, about beaches and sunlight, she whispered warmly, "Your memories feel bright, like fire. We do not dream this way." It was unsettling, but also strangely comforting. Ethan found himself looking forward to her presence, even if it embarrassed him sometimes. But one evening, things went too far. Ethan was in the engine room, wiping sweat from his brow after hours of work. His mind drifted, as it often did, to silly thoughts he never said aloud. He imagined himself as a hero, saving the ship from some great danger. He pictured himself, standing proudly, the crew cheering. It was childish, but it made the work feel less dull. Then her voice slipped in. "You see yourself as brave, though you laugh at the idea." Ethan nearly jumped out of his skin. "Lyra, don't sneak up on me like that." She stepped into view, her silver skin glowing under the dim lights. "I did not sneak. You thought loudly. I only listened. He groaned. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that is? Those were just dumb daydreams. But Lyra didn't laugh at him. Instead, her expression softened. Not dumb, beautiful. Humans dream even in silence. We Zevran, we do not. Her words caught Ethan off guard. You don't dream? She shook her head slowly. Our thoughts are ordered, structured. We share everything, but nothing is hidden. There is no chaos, no sparks. But you, your mind is full of sparks, small fires everywhere. It fascinates me. Ethan blinked, unsure what to say. Nobody had ever called his messy brain beautiful before. Days passed and the crew grew wary. Some whispered that Lyra was dangerous, that telepaths could dig too deep, control human thoughts. Ethan overheard two miners complaining in the corridor. She's always staring into people's heads, makes my skin crawl. Yeah, and she's too close to that engineer guy. Cole, right? He better watch himself. Ethan tried to ignore them, but their words stayed with him. Was he being foolish, letting her so close? That night, as he lay in his bunk, he whispered in his head, knowing she might hear. Are you reading me now? Her reply was immediate, soft and amused. Yes, he sighed. Do you control people's thoughts? Her voice grew quiet, serious. No, that is forbidden. I only listen. But with you, I cannot help it. Your thoughts call to me. Ethan turned on his side, staring at the ceiling. What if I don't want you in my head? There was a pause, then her voice gentle. Then I will leave. But would you truly want me gone? Ethan hesitated. He wanted to say yes, to protect himself. But deep down, he knew the truth. As strange as it was, he didn't want her to leave. She was the first one in years who had really seen him. Not just his words, but all the pieces of his mind he usually kept hidden. Finally, he whispered, No, I guess not. Her laughter echoed softly in his head. Then I will stay. From that night, onward their bond deepened. Lyra no longer just listened, she shared. Sometimes Ethan caught glimpses of her own thoughts like faint echoes. He saw flashes of vast Zevran cities, glowing with crystalline towers. He felt the calm weight of their collective mind, ordered and peaceful, but strangely empty. And, in return, she delighted in his human chaos. The jokes he never spoke, the worries he hid, the silly songs he remembered from childhood. It was a strange friendship, born in silence yet filled with noise. Ethan still blushed when she teased him about his private thoughts, but he couldn't deny it anymore. He liked that she was there, and yet somewhere deep inside, a question lingered. If she could see everything in his mind, what would happen when she found the thoughts he truly wished to hide?